The thing where it's like right message, wrong messenger. That's like an annoying thing people say on Twitter. And I try my best not to believe that, because I think if you say something logical and objective, then it doesn't matter who said it. Yeah. But I'm making an exception for her.
Sometimes the opposition makes a valid argument and you kind of gotta...
What are we doing, mate?
We're reviewing Just Stop Oil protests.
At it again. Just Stop Oil activists built onto the streets of London today.
Just Stop Oil.
Protests by Just Stop Oil have made headlines for months now.
Just Stop Oil, who spent 11 days demonstrating in London, blocking roads, throwing paint at shops and restaurants.
Never has a group of people stand for something I believe in so much by doing things I hate so much. All right, how you doing, man? How's life?
Life is life-in, man.
Yeah?
Can't complain, to be fair. Yeah, health is wealth and all that good stuff. What about you?
Yeah, life is good. Cool. You know what we're doing today?
What are we doing, mate?
We're reviewing Just Stop Oil protests. Never has a group of people stand for something I believe in so much by doing things I hate so much. It's the only way to describe this group. This non-violent, they claim non-violent. Do you know you have to do I went on their website, you have to do a non-violence course before you do it. Which doesn't set a great precedent for the people who are signing up, right? It's
a non-violence course.
Yeah.
What does that entail?
A non-violent protest course.
Okay, but what would that actually like?
Sit in traffic, don't beat people, I think, is what they say.
But isn't that the actual thing that they're doing, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not saying I tried to register. I just went on their website to try and
just to
understand.
See.
Yeah.
What's their you know, how are they gatekeeping people?
Yeah, and it's a simple form. One of the questions is, are you a student? Which I'm like, why do you need to know?
Because it's easiest to sell this ideology to students, probably.
Probably,
right?
yeah.
You know, you have no firm beliefs.
You're still finding stuff that you want to act like is important.
You have no real responsibilities yet.
Yeah. Let's go through some of these, okay? It was formed in February of 2022. Okay. And in 2022, these are boring ones. Let's get to the good stuff. Okay. I read a really funny report. Phoebe Plummer.
Oh, she the purple-haired girl.
Yeah, the girl who threw a can of tomato soup at Van Gogh's painting.
Oh, of course she did, yeah.
Which, you know, my immediate reaction was, he must be just turning in his grave, like,
what did I do? Yeah.
What did I do to deserve this?
But were they oil paintings?
Ooh, I don't know, maybe.
See, maybe she knew exactly what she was doing.
No, because there's a news article that says she was arrested at a cafe waiting for her hash browns. I don't know if you know how to cook hash browns, but they're usually deep fried in oil. So by that logic,
I'm pretty sure, you know, there's oil within the creation of her piercings. Probably. She has the jewelry she wears, the clothes I think oil is used in probably like most of her life.
The Formula one, that one really bothered me.
Well, I'm sure it bothered you a lot.
Yeah. So on the 3rd of July 2022, a group of Just Stop Oil protesters walked out onto the track of the 2022 British Grand Prix after the race had been suspended due to a crash in the opening lap. Now, this crash was horrendous. People were worried about this guy's life because his car flipped and he was stuck between the barrier and the fence. His car was just jammed there. And it was a very, very scary time. I would argue that Zhou Guanyu, the race driver, thankfully survived with barely a scratch. But I would argue if that hadn't happened, people would have died. Because they were sat on the track, on the straight. Cars reach up to well in excess of 200 miles an hour on that straight. And I don't know if you know how much about how aerodynamics works, but the front end of a Formula One car at that speed is pretty much a razor blade. This is the Gillette Fusion Stealth attached to a 1,000 plus horsepower engine traveling at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, you tried trimming your beard with that.
Yeah. Well, it was about to trim some Just Stop Oil protesters. But in the process, causing an accident with multiple, it was the start of the race, so everyone's bunched up together. 22 cars could have crashed into each other. Wow. Yeah.
It is interesting that... So the crash happened. Yeah. Obviously, the procedures that take place there.
So you get a safety car.
Right,
So
and then they
safety car
rush
slows the car.
onto the
Yeah.
track. Okay.
I don't know if they timed it like that, but yeah. The art galleries, the
Yeah.
throwing orange paint, all of these. Do you see a connection?
No.
That's
Well, I was going to say the exact same thing about the snooker. I was like, what
Yeah.
did snooker do?
like a
what are
snooker
they-
balls made of petrol.
Not to my knowledge. I don't know how they make snooker balls, to be fair, so I could be ignorant to that. But I don't think it matters. I honestly don't think any of this really, like the cricket stuff is funny. We're just getting picked up and like taken
Were
away.
they?
Yeah, they're getting picked up like children. Like,
Yeah.
come on, off you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the orange paint on the or whatever it is on literally everything.
Yeah.
Um,
What even does orange have to do with it?
I was gonna say that is the
Yeah.
color is the color representative of something.
I'm not sure.
Or is
What
that
does-
just the color they chose?
What does the color orange mean?
Oh, just generally speaking, not even in.
Yeah, because you got like something is envy, yada yada.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think green is it? I don't know.
Green is envy.
Enthusiasm and emotion.
Okay, well, it's definitely emotion.
It exudes warmth and joy, which I would argue is typically caused by, burning fuels to turn the heat on.
I feel like we should emphasize the point that we're on board with the whole we should move to renewable energy sources and all of that. We're definitely on board with all of that as a cause, but you're just pissing off all the people that are supposed to agree with you. Like you're making us not agree. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Burn more oil now.
That's the point. You're turning people who support your cause really far away from your cause.
Like I like what you said, but
Yeah.
I don't like that you said it.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
where we're at now. I don't get as well why it's okay. So I understand they want to cause disruption so people pay attention.
Yes.
That makes sense to me. Just that alone, but you're pissing off regular people. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have the power to do this. Like, if I'm on the M25, it's not my control. Like that's I'm a victim as much as you are if this is the situation. So I'm just like, why don't they go do this outside of like Parliament and block them from
That's a
getting in?
good shout.
I've always thought
Yeah.
like, does that seem obvious? Cause disruption to the people who actually have, the capability of making change, not regular folk. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, bro, I'm just trying to get the kids to school.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't know what else I'm supposed. Like, I'm in my dressing gown. What do you want from me?
Watching the videos of these people getting dragged across the street so some dude can drive his like truck to the destination and get his paycheck and
Yeah.
go home. Anybody who's getting dragged through a street, I shouldn't be on the side of the dragger.
No, I shouldn't.
But
yeah.
I find myself occasionally like,
You have to be a fair. You got to be a real for me to side against you when someone is putting hands on you. Like actually, no, I'm fine with this. Like that's not a common opinion when I see violence of any kind, to be honest. So, but what the new thing I've seen is where people are like joining hands and essentially doing what they've been doing, but to like cordon them off the streets.
Right.
Which is smart, to be fair. If
I
loads
like
of
it.
people get out their cars, create like a human chain or whatever, and just sort of block them from blocking the streets. I'm like, oh, nice. That's a good way of doing this because I don't know. I don't know what the police is like. I guess they're sort of in a bit of a sticky situation where like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
Are they because you can't just arrest them for the sake of arresting them and then release them the next day anyway. Well, I think they have been doing that a little bit, but
so that's again something that they're standing against, which I'm kind of, again, it's one of their messages that I really stand for. It's one of Just Stop Oil's message that I stand for, and they're doing it in the wrong way. But they kind of hate a new order, which is like the public something or act, the Public Order Act or something that does enable police to arrest somebody for protesting.
interesting.
Which shouldn't be the case.
Well,
like,
is there more to it than that though? Is it just
I think
you're
it just
protesting? And we wanna
I mean,
arrest
it's
you?
a legal order, so I'm sure it's pages and pages of writing. But I think the general summary of it is, if it's causing some level of disruption, you're allowed to just intervene now. Whereas before, I don't think they were allowed to.
Right. Okay.
I'm all for Germany's tactic of right to protest. I've mentioned this on another podcast, so I'll gloss over it very quickly. But there was some people who did, maybe part of Just Stop Oil, they glued their hands to the floor of a Porsche garage. And so they were like, well, you have the right to protest. So they locked up, kept the air conditioning on to keep them cold. To keep a nice temperature for them.
That's the one where they requested like stuff to go toilet in.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I'm not doing
I have
that.
to respect your right to protest. I don't have to aid it.
No, I
So-
don't. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think. Yeah, if you're here by your own volition, then surely it's not for me to keep you I don't know. It's not even alive. You're not going to die. You're just going to be really smelly in the morning. That's about it. You know.
Something that's hilarious because Phoebe Plummer hasn't been charged yet, but until she is, she's not allowed to carry adhesives in public.
She's not allowed to carry adhesives.
Yeah, because I think she
doesn't glue herself to stuff.
To me, that's the most like. I don't know. Everyone knew a kid at school that wasn't really allowed to hold scissors.
Or if he was, we all sort of kept an eye out, like just in case. Like he's got him again.
Exactly.
Never quite learned the whole. You know how you get taught to pass scissors in school. He never quite learned it. He's always played first. Like, whoa, you know that's not how this goes. But yeah, I don't know. To me, when I saw her, she was on some news of the mainstream media with what's the guy, Morgan Mogg.
Oh yeah,
that guy. I think I got 2 out of the
again.
3 names.
I actually not Rees Mogg. Jacob Rees Mogg, Member of Parliament.
There you go. So I remember just seeing her in conversation with him, and I don't really know much about him, but my assume is he's just your typical politician who, you know, I'm not going to go into depth about the typical politician. I think whatever you think is probably what. She somehow came off less likable than him, and I was like, oh, he's just been really rational and very like calm, collected, and she was just really like, this is the injustice. I was like, oh my god, you definitely like grew up in Kent and have like really privileged life, you're on a gap year, like that's definitely who you are. And I'm just like, that when you cry about things like, and you're right as well, I'm not saying that the things you're saying are right, but you're the wrong messenger. And I know that's not a popular thing where it's like right message, wrong messenger. That's like an annoying thing people say on Twitter, but like, because who says it shouldn't? Right message, wrong messenger. They say that a lot when, like, you know, somebody they don't like says something they do like. And I try my best not to believe that, because I think if you say something logical and objective, then it doesn't matter who said it. But I'm making an exception for her. Judge me all you want.
Dude, that is the internet though. Like in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Because something I really hate is that, you're immediately in a camp, right? You can't just say, oh, this politician said that. I like that they said that. No. You're a member of that parliament now. You're a member of that party. You're either wear red or blue, and you vote, and you're like, no. They spoke for 20 seconds, and I liked that 20 seconds. That's all I liked.
You're not allowed to have that. You have to agree or disagree in totality. Like that's just how it has to go. It's like, no, I either hate every word that's ever come out of your mouth ever, or I completely agree with everything you've ever said. And
you think, to me at least, I thought it was just the people with a following that have to deal with this stuff, but everybody's susceptible to it. We don't have a particularly big following, but I posted a video about me and Ash discussing vegetarianism. For the sake, for everyone's I'm not a vegetarian. I'm a regular meat eater. But people were attacking us, going, you should eat meat. And I was like, he's like, you should eat meat because of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, but have you considered this? And they're like, oh, stupid vegetarian. I was like, I'm not even vegetarian. Man.
No, I'm just.
I heard the other perspective. They have some points, Like, I don't think it's right. Otherwise, I'd be vegetarian myself. But you can't argue. They have some points.
Right.
Sometimes the opposition makes a valid argument, and you kind of gotta.
Do you know what's funny? You say that. Actually, I can't remember what the actual topic of this was, what prompted this, but I remember I try my best not to comment on YouTube videos, but every now and again I'll.
But I'm a consumer.
Every now and again I'm like, I'm going to exercise my right here, and then I can't remember what triggered this, but they basically said I don't like any conservatives.
Right.
I was like, any like at any point. I feel like that's like, it's pretty extreme to just be like this whole group of people, absolutely not. Because if you change the word conservatives for anything else, nearly, most people would be like, whoa, that's like,
it's kind of out of order.
There's going to be an ism at the end of a word. Like, that's what's going to happen. If someone says, well, that's kind of ist. Like, but because you said conservatives, like, everyone's fine. I was like, I feel like you lack a bit of like life experience and social calibration.
Maybe social calibration.
Yeah, social calibration, where it's like,
pull this forward a little bit. Carry on.
I'm like, I think maybe you should just take a step outside, speak to more people, realize that, the people you do agree with and don't agree with can be equally valid and invalid. Like, not everybody is, oh, I belong in this camp, so everything I say is right, or vice versa. Just like, that's so close-minded. Like, you got to find some middle ground on some things. Like, the extremes of both ends are probably not great, but the middle point of both is probably fine.
Yeah, and I'm like, why do you have that opinion?
Exactly, yeah.
If you've only ever heard one side, why are you such a firm believer of that? Surely, if you have an opinion, somebody challenges it and you still come out on top, that's how you build belief. That's how you like get a stronger and stronger belief.
Yeah.
So if you're
test it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so what happened? You left a comment? What was the verdict?
After I said you could probably do with some social calibration, there was no response.
Oh, I see. Of course.
And I made it clear as well. I was like, I'm not even saying this to insult you. I'm actually like a little bit like sad for you, to be honest. Like, the way that you see the world is such an absolute way. Like, don't get me wrong, I like to speak in absolutes mainly just because it's fun that way. Yeah. But, you know, if we're having a genuine like sit down and conversation, I probably am a little bit more, you know, fairly in the middle on most things, you know.
Do you model people in your head, like based on their opinion and stuff? Do you think of them a certain way? I think everybody does, but I mean,
maybe I'm not answering the question properly, but sometimes if I hear one opinion from somebody, I can tell what all the rest of your opinions will be.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll be honest, I typically get that right. Yeah. Like, it's pretty accurate most of the time.
I don't.
Okay. I try my best not to, but I'll be like, oh, okay, I bet you believe this, this, and this too.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah, I do. What, you don't? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay, thought so.
I was saying that because, you do speak in absolutes, and you've mentioned that it's because you like to, that stimulates interest in conversation. Because what that's meant in the past is, you know, we have plenty of out of office conversations, and we'll be talking about different stuff, and then you'll say some things, and like maybe on my drive home, I'm like, Harvey is this kind of person, and then like a week later we'll be discussing it, and then I'm like, oh, you're a lot more closer to like the middle rather than, you know, far on this side.
100%.
And I'm like, I got that wrong about Harvey. And then you mentioned to me, like, you know, I do that to stimulate interesting conversation.
100%, yeah.
I realized I do something else as well. I do something of a similar vein. And I've only recently found out that I do this intentionally. But I'm very happy that I do this. Okay. I enable people to give their full opinion. So I make it seem like I'm on your side for like 90% of the road. Because some people, if you express that you're, you know, like if you express that you disagree with them, it either fuels them or reels them back a little bit. Right. So I say that, you know, let's say you tell me a certain opinion, I'll go, oh yeah. Like I won't say that I agree, but I'll kind of drag you along to get your full perspective. You're
going to let them think the environment is safe. So
give
like me unadulterated, like just go on, give me everything. Give me all of it.
Don't just like give me the stuff that like, you know, you're worried someone might hear. Yeah. No, let's go all the way.
Yeah, let's go full QAnon, 4chan.
Yeah, you know, don't just give me the half salute. You know, right, I want full mass. I want to hear your opinion. And I have no shame in that I'll pretend to agree with you until you get the full, like, you know, until you get to that stage. And then I'll reel back and like, all right.
That's it. Yeah,
I need to get away from you.
That's exactly what it is. It's like the Bill Burr bit when he's sort of saying like, well, it's the accidental version of what you're doing. The Bill Burr bit where he's talking about when you know the N-word is coming. Yeah, when you're in a bar and he's like, all of a sudden this guy's like, wait, well, no, I'm not with you. Like, you're doing like the intentional version of that.
Yeah, because I want to see what you really think.
Go on, say it. Go on, I dare you to say it. It's like, no, we're all friends here. You can say it.
By the way, I immediately enter panic when they do.
Oh, of course, because now it's like, well, actually, I don't agree with that. Like, you need to make it very clear to anyone who might be listening. Yeah. Actually, that's not my opinion. That's the climate we're in now as well, where, you know, one wrong opinion, as far as the consensus is concerned, could just be the end of your life.
Which, compiled with everything is listening to us, is a very scary world to live in. We went for dinner, was it it was Tuesday night. You, me and Ash went for dinner Tuesday night, and we talked about something. We were talking about, not Fresh and Fit, what's the other dude?
Whatever.
The Whatever podcast. Brian. I don't like Brian. Man. I don't like that as a concept, but him personally.
I don't know why I don't find him intriguing enough to hold the conversation as a host.
Yeah.
Either. Like anytime I see a clip of him, I'm like, you take 8 minutes to say a 2-minute point. That's just how I feel about him. But your point was more just like,
where do you get off?
Yeah.
You know, why do you feel so entitled to, this is hard to say on a podcast of our own.
Yeah,
but like, why do you feel so entitled to give your opinion on this matter?
Right, yeah.
And that's, I hold my hand up and I realize that's very obnoxious of me to sort of say about somebody. But we were talking about him and him saying something in particular. In my mind, phones listen to us and try to advertise certain things to us.
Right.
No, it didn't just show me, like that very evening before bed, not only did it show me a clip of that podcast.
Oh, wow.
It showed me a clip of that podcast talking about the thing you and I were talking about.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, just when we started to think we were getting a bit of a grasp on social media, on how far our technology, how advanced it is, it was actually way more advanced this whole time.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. Do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about social media, like constantly being under surveillance?
Yes. I have this debate with my mum because she has an Alexa. Yeah. And I'm like, you don't need an Alexa. Yeah. And she's like, why not? I'm like, because you use it as a radio. Yeah. Like genuinely, it's a radio and an alarm. That's it. That's all she uses it for. I don't even know what else she would use it for, to be honest. But
it can tell you the weather. It can control the lights in your house if you
if you have doing that. I'll give it that. But controlling telling you the weather is like.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a phone.
I still don't feel comfortable talking to technology. I very rarely tell the iPhone, because it will stop recording if it triggers it. But the Apple Assistant, who that rhymes with Peary.
Like the chicken.
Like the chicken. I very rarely ask it to do stuff. Yeah. Apart from call people when I'm driving.
Okay. Yeah, I always find that anytime I do the equivalent of that again, if I say it, it will do stuff. If I do the equivalent of that for Android, it's like, I'm like, this would have been better results if I'd have typed it. I don't know why it always feels that way, but whenever I do the voice command one, it's always just like, that's not detailed enough. I need like more. I don't know why the Google search seems to just work differently. I could be wrong about that, but that's just how it seems.
It's like you can listen to me talking about a podcast and serve me a clip of a podcast discussing the topic Harvey and I were talking. But you can't tell the difference between this contact and that contact. Do you know the amount of times I've called the wrong people? Yeah. And like with iPhones, it just starts ringing. Right. And it's like from the first ring that other person's. Most phones, when you hit someone's name, if you're quick enough, you can cancel beforehand. Yeah. They've improved it now, but before there was no lag. The second you tapped on that name, if they had an iPhone, it would immediately say they've rang you, and they'd call you back.
Just a tap.
Yeah.
Not even one ring, like audio ring.
No.
That's crazy.
If you've tapped on it, they've done an update now. Other iPhone users might remember this, but if you tap on it and went immediately like that,
still said you rang.
It said missed call from. Bro, leave me alone.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
that is too much, to be honest. Do you know? It's funny that you said that though, because something else that happened that Tuesday.
Sorry, something else.
Yeah, something else, because what you were saying about your phone is always listening and social media, blah, blah, blah. But there was a couple times in conversation where, we might have said something a little bit controversial.
It's quite often, yeah.
Yeah, and we'd have a little, just to be sure nobody's listening, right?
Oh,
a little look around. But then when we spoke about Jordan Peterson briefly, that gentleman sat next to us.
Yes.
He turned around and was like, he had his own comments about Jordan Peterson. Yeah. And even that is interesting. Like, now that was like a fairly positive interaction, but
very nice interaction. Yes. Yeah, but interesting that somebody else was
exactly. Yeah. So it's not only the social media that's listening and might have a, well, I guess social media or your phone as a whole, it's just going to try and sell you stuff and get you to consume things.
For now, yeah.
But then I guess people, it's like, I could challenge your opinion, which is fine. I'm not averse to people challenging my opinions, but it's interesting that just out and about, people feel quite comfortable.
Yeah.
I
would rather that though.
So would I.
I'd rather have the opportunity to not even defend my opinion, just explain it in full detail, and then you can stand where you stand. See, I'm not worried about I'm not worried about being under surveillance. I'm really worried about being taken out of context.
Yeah, and being misunderstood.
Yeah. There's so many opinions I have that if you listen to the first half of it, I'd understand if you took out the pitchforks and like rallied. But if you heard the full opinion, my logic, my rationale, you might still disagree, but you'll raise some points. I'll be able to raise some counterpoints.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because I'm sure I definitely have some opinions where...
I've heard them.
Yeah. Again, because I like the absolutes. I'll say a statement...
Yeah.
that starts a conversation,
Yeah.
and if you were to just cut that and take that, you might be like, wait, what? Like, he says this? But if you let me flesh the whole thing out, it might come across as like, oh, okay, like you said, I still don't necessarily agree, but I don't think he's like a terrible human being now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that's something to be said about, like, I guess the political/social landscape of things today, where I think a lot of people, if they're on either side of the debate, it's like, well, the other people, they think that the other people are like evil or you know, they have bad intentions, where typically they just have a different perspective, but ultimately the goal is to make things better. They just have a different idea of what better looks like.
Yes.
I think it's not too common, at least not these days, that somebody has a specifically bad intention. Like, they're not gonna they're trying to cause, you know, harm to the society as a whole. Like, that to me seems fairly rare.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think most people have got a good intention, but you just might, you know, in terms of like execution and action, it just might look very different for one person to another.
All right, let's explore that then. In that instance, then, from what I gathered from what you're saying is, let's say a conservative and a liberal might disagree with what they both want to end up with a better outcome, but they might disagree in terms of what that looks like and the journey to get there. What would you say defines their perspective? Upbringing?
I want to say it's difficult. Upbringing is definitely going to be that's probably the largest percentage of it, right? Because upbringing could be your, you know, outside influences, that sort of thing, environment, etc. And it could be what experience led you to even acknowledge this problem. You know, so you could have been on one side of a problem and perceived it one way, and you could have been on the other side of it and perceived it another, which means you're attacking it from opposite ends, but essentially still trying to get what you perceive to be better outcomes.
Yeah. Both of those seem to be things that are passive, things happening to the individual.
Okay.
Let's get philosophical.
Okay.
Let's get philosophical up in this bitch. To what extent then is that individual liable for what they believe in and what they...
Oh, I see what you mean. So, like, am I responsible for my opinions based on the fact that it was it
was fed to you.
Interesting.
Rather than you building it.
Interesting. I like that. I think the world gets a bit too messy if nobody's responsible for anything they think or say.
Yeah.
But I don't think a healthy society would put a cap on the things people think or say.
Expand on that a bit more, that last bit.
So basically what I mean is, you know, you might have a controversial opinion, but I don't believe that, you know, you should be deplatformed or something like that for it.
Yes.
You know, I've
I'm
seen
a firm
this,
believer of that.
Yeah,
too.
I've seen this debate where, you know, to be clear, I obviously don't support any type of or whatever, but there's been a debate of should Nazis be allowed on the internet at all? Should they be just completely deplatformed?
Yeah.
Now, again, like I said, don't agree with their views, obviously.
Yeah.
But
by the way, just you saying that might get this video taken down. But
what, really?
I think, didn't that...
what, just the word? Is that what you mean?
I think so. Didn't that happen to Theo Von? She very satirically agreed with them. I think the woman.
I think she said the opposite, though.
Oh, okay.
I think I could be misunderstanding it, but the sad part is that Theo Von had zero idea of what was happening in the entire clip. Yeah. So,
but yeah, sorry. Carry on with your point.
Sorry, yeah,
and I might bleep who you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe bleep that word. But the point I'm making is, should they have an area to flesh out their ideas? Yes or no is the question. And I'm not really giving an answer to that either. Anyway, I'm just saying it's a difficult debate because. If we're talking about like free speech and stuff like that, I don't know how free speech works in this country, but at least in America, where, you know, the world seems to point the cameras at, it's like everybody else's reality show is America, right?
Kind of.
But you know, they talk a lot about free speech over there, and I don't know if that's like a hard line to cross, because at the end of the day, even though their ideas and their opinions are abhorrent, should they still have a platform to express them?
If you're asking me, I say yes.
Okay.
I think it's even beneficial to the people who disagree with those values.
That's
right?
where I was going to go next.
You picked a group that will probably be bleeped, but I think it's safe to say a large majority, arguably maybe 95% of the population, are on one side of like, no, to hell with that group, and I hope that their values don't get upheld. But it's kind of hard to tell. But if they're allowed to speak freely, and everybody is allowed to rebuttal them, you might get some of them converting.
Right?
You might raise some points that somebody from that group is like reading it and going, actually, maybe the values I believe in aren't that great.
The question where they pick them up, etc.
I firmly disagree with a large majority of the things that like Andrew Tate said. But I still stand by the fact that I think taking him off the platforms was probably the worst thing you could have done for yourself as somebody who believes against his values.
Made him a martyr.
Yeah, made him a martyr, and now there's no one to argue against.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that arguing against him will boost his leverage and like make him more visible to the outside world. But
only if he wins the arguments, though, right? Or at least he's perceived to win the arguments. I would. That's
the thing, and I'm sure people who.
I guess the perception is difficult.
Yeah, and perception is in his control. I think, you can cut things, you can and put that. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah,
it's been used against him several times. Where again, I'm watching something and I disagree with him, and then I hear the full point, and I'm like, I still disagree, but that was unfair.
Right, the way they treated that point.
Yeah,
and they cut it up.
But yeah, I'm like, if he wasn't deplatformed, or if these people aren't deplatformed, and people are allowed to be vocal and logical, like be nice about it, otherwise you realize you're not really helping your case, you're harming it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if you present your case forward, like, hey, X, Y, and Z is wrong because of X, Y, and Z, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, how can we really call it a democracy if you silence one side of it?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So,
here's what I would ask, though. A lot of people argue about, the reason behind, and I struggle to defend against this argument because a lot of people say, no, people like Andrew Tate, people like the group that you mentioned earlier, should be deplatformed because of how they influence the younger generation.
Okay.
What would you say to something like that? Assuming, ignore the two people I said.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but the general
a point of view you disagree with.
Right.
If it's influencing a large wave of younger people, what would you say to that? I've always struggled. It
is difficult because at one side of it, I'd like to think, well, at the end of the day, as a parent, if we're talking about children, we should be... you should have some control or at least you should be monitoring the content that they're taking in. But at the same time, it is difficult because, especially in today's economy, most of the time it's a two-parent household where both people are working. Right. That's if it's a two-parent household. Yeah. So it's very difficult for you to, a lot of people, the easy answer is just give them an iPad. Right. The kids have a phone at like a ridiculously young age at this point. And part of that, I think to myself, sort of a side point, but is the reason every kid has a phone is that because they've sold us the fear of a kid, not having a phone. Yeah. Like, because, well, what if something happens to your child and you haven't given them a phone? Yeah. Is that like part of the marketing strategy is to get them to have phones earlier? And the next kid has a phone. Well, yeah, that's definitely part of it. Yeah. At least, that's 100% true. But it's difficult because what do we say? Is the ownership on the child or is the ownership on the parent, or is the ownership on the creator? John Luke is not here. Oh, is he not? Okay. Bear with me, guys. Back to regular scheduled programming shortly. Well, what were we saying? What were we you were asking me who the ownership, who's responsible? Yeah, whose responsibility? Yeah, because it's difficult to say the influence. I think it's difficult to say that the influencer, who is just voicing their opinions and exercising their right to free speech, is responsible for how your child. It's kind of like the whole. Does rap music create violence, or do violent video games create violence? I have a little bit more of a opinion on rap music as a whole, but I suppose it is the ownership on the artist to make sure that you're not going out and doing the things they say they do in their lyrics or whatever. Right, because as you were just talking then, it made me realize actually, as a parent, I feel like a parent's main responsibility,
shelter, food, all that stuff is a given. Outside of that, I think a parent's main responsibility, almost exclusively, is to embed your values in them,
right,
and then release them for that to blossom in their own way. Not to force anything down their throat. Just say this is what we, as a family, as a community, as a thing, this is what we believe in. This is this is right from wrong. Now, translate that how you will. Go out into the world, make your own mind about certain things. Choose your religion, choose your political party. But I think if you're effective enough at embedding the right values, some controversial opinion on the internet, the kid might come home one day and echo those thoughts and feelings. And that's where you sit them down and you go, hey, listen, this is, or at the very least, this is how you should consider that opinion. Right, not wipe it from your memory. This is not what we do around here. Yeah. It's like, this is how these are the questions you should be asking when you watch a video like that.
Yeah, and maybe do you think this aligns with our family values, that sort of thing?
Yeah. You're coming across very quiet now.
Am I?
Yeah. Say things a bit louder.
Say things a bit louder.
Yeah, okay. It is reading. I'll be able to edit it.
Okay, but I think to some degree it's like, do you think that maybe our individualistic society that we've developed over time has made it harder for parents to push their specific values onto their children, and it's now more of a like they get their values from like school and social media, like TikTok plays a huge part in things like that. Do you think that well, I don't want to say do you think it's a net negative or a net positive, because it's too absolute, I suppose. What do you think? Do you think anything about that? I suppose
I think about that a lot. I think it has the potential and the power to do incredible. It's the same opinion I have about AI. It has the power and the potential to do great things. It just hasn't done it yet. So yeah, I mean, this whole idea of social media, it's not just it's not just negativity it's spewing. It's shedding a light on so many things we didn't even know was going on, and it empowers people to sort of stand up and rise against it. But it sometimes misses the mark, and unfortunately the issue, I think, is the ones that are missing the mark are the ones getting the loudest spotlight or the brightest spotlight. Like, full circle here, but like Just Stop Oil.
Right.
It's their idiocy. I'm sorry to call it that, but that's genuinely what I believe. It's the silly actions that they take that's getting much more of airtime than the actual message that we should stop and move to renewable resources.
Yeah, because to be fair, I saw there was a clip of like Piers Morgan's show, YouTube show that he was. It's just a YouTube show, right?
I don't know. He walked out on some network.
I know, it's Piers Morgan Uncensored. But, I don't know if it's just on YouTube, but I only ever see clips of it on YouTube. But basically, one of the Just Stop Oil folks were on the show, and the point they tried to make the point that they have to do these things, elsewise other people won't bother to take any notice and won't listen to the message. They can't. Piers Morgan was saying, like, you're welcome to come here and have the logical debate of the issues, but because of the things you're doing, the attention isn't on the issues. The attention is on the antics. Yeah. So you're actually, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face at this point. You're losing your own, but you're the one losing the battle because you're fighting it wrong, basically. So, I think our sensationalism and stuff like that has definitely played a part as well. We care more about how a message is delivered rather than the message as a whole. Yeah,
exactly. And that's where I'm like, actually, all of these things have the power and the resource to do good. When you look at the people developing these platforms, you might be able to argue, I don't really see it within them, that that's their desire. Right. You look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at the person from TikTok, you look at Elon Musk. I hate to put all of them in the same group because I don't feel the same way about each and one of them individually the same way. But you look at all of those people, and it's hard to envision that they have society's best interest at heart. Right. But the tools that they're developing, maybe they've made a few wrong turns. Facebook was notorious for sharing negativity. I think Instagram to some extent has a similar sort of algorithm.
Yeah, I think it's the same algorithm, but I guess it's just a different effect because Instagram is less information based.
Right. So. But I think humans have a natural negativity bias. I've talked about the example in that book where it's like if you drive past a beautiful bed of roses and there's a huge accident on the right, like a large proportion of people will look at the accident over the beautiful bed of roses.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know, maybe they could do more to counter that negativity bias and sort of force us to do good with it. But
it's interesting though, because in contrast to that, I've seen this like depicted as like a meme or whatever a lot of the time, where it was like it's two like booths. And you can line up for each one of these booths. One of the sign above one booth is what is it? Uncomfortable truth. And then above the other one is comforting lies. And everyone is in the line for the comforting lies.
Right, yeah.
So it's interesting because that's sort of the opposite of what we just said, right? Is people will gravitate towards the negative. So it's basically, does this affect me or not?
Yeah,
that's really.
I was trying to find a way to say that, but yeah, that's exactly it.
That's what it is. It's like, does this stuff affect me directly?
Yeah.
If not, then I'm here for the negative stuff. But if it's, right at home with me, then no, let me turn a blind eye to it.
And the thing you just described is more like, do I have to take action or can I get away with not taking action?
Right.
Whereas this is just like, what would I prefer to see? I think a lot of people would prefer to see the blood, the gore, rather than look at the incredible stuff. Like, yeah, there's countless instances where people haven't heard of anything to do with certain, like violence in the Middle East or, issues going on in China, or even like, you don't see much of North Korea.
No, yeah.
But we all know. And like some snippets break through the cracks. And like, when during the pandemic, there were these drones flying around, I think it was somewhere in China, just telling people to stay indoors. And it was like maximum penalty for leaving the house, or like, prison sentence for leaving the house, stay indoors, yada, yada, yada. And, in my mind, everybody lives like I do until you see a video like that.
And you go, oh yeah, that happens.
So yeah, sometimes the negativity, it makes you see things and it makes you understand and appreciate things from a different perspective.
But it begs the question, are we too connected or too disconnected?
Don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How I guess both are true, right? We are both too connected and disconnected at the same time. Exactly,
because right now, before and after I knew what was going on in these countries, I'm doing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, my behavior hasn't changed. It's like the thing they say, if there was a person tied to a train track, and you were stood in front of the switch that would change.
Careful. This is where we got in a lot of trouble with people.
Why? Because what happened?
It was to do with the chickens that we were eating.
I
used the same analogy, but
I see. Are you complicit?
Yeah.
Because one I saw was, if it's one person on the train track and then on the other train track there's nobody, and then it escalated to I think there was 5 people on one train track and then 3 people on the other one. Do you switch them so it kills 3 people or kills 5 people, or leave it to kill 5 people? And apparently, I think I don't know the actual percentages, but I think a lot of people just said they would just leave it alone once it gets to 5 or 3 people. So they're actually letting 5 people die, but because they think that inaction removes them of any guilt or responsibility. Whereas if you are stood in front of that switch, I would say the logical, but if we take all the emotional and the shock out of it, would be to let it hit the 3 people rather than the 5 people, because 2 lives.
But suddenly you're involved. So I think the example that I saw was one trolley. What was it? One trolley going down a fork. You can choose to go left or you can choose to go right. Left is 1 person, right is 5 people. So the trolley is going there. It's going towards 5 people, but you can move the lever and it'll go right and it goes to 1.
Yeah.
And most people would obviously say I would go towards the 1.
Yeah.
Then there is another scenario where you're just an observer. There's a train going towards 5 people and a fat person stood on a bridge. You can push the fat person off the bridge to stop the train.
And it stops the train.
For certain it stops the train.
Interesting.
Same number of people, but suddenly less people are willing to get involved.
Right, because rather than you actually just hitting a switch or whatever, you've had to physically push it.
Exactly. And so that's the example we used about, because Ash was saying that, buying chicken creates a demand for chicken.
Right.
And I was like, yes, but you buying an iPhone creates demand for lithium batteries, which leads to that.
Yeah.
And then he goes, yes, but so that's the argument of like, buying a chicken is essentially you pushing the fat guy because that's your direct involvement. Whereas buying an iPhone, it's you did something that led to somebody else doing something else. You know, you can ethically mine stuff. It doesn't have to be through slave labor.
Well, I guess the difference would be you could buy an iPhone without knowing that that's happening.
That's also true.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you didn't know, in your mind, there's nothing unethical about, you know.
It's kind of messed up, though, is that we all now know.
We do all now know.
And we all still
buy the phones.
Yeah.
It is true. It's difficult because I remember once seeing a video that, you know, they were basically saying for the West to thrive, the East has to suffer. And I was like, that's really sad. And then I'm like, at the same time, there's been countless examples of that throughout history where for yin to yin, yang has to yang, basically.
Right.
So, you know, it's like, you know, the seesaw situation sort of thing. So, but how complicit is the individual in that?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a firm believer of that too, as in like there's a finite amount of resources in the world, and you know, the scales might just lean more on one side. But Ash has kind of shaken things up. He, you know, to quote Charlie Chaplin, "The good earth is rich, and everyone something."
Everyone can eat.
Yeah, it's actually a really beautiful. The good earth is rich and can provide.
I see.
Here we go. Hold on. Let's. Did you have anything else you wanted to cover, or can we end on this? Which is ironic. We've talked about this is where he acts as the main person from the party you mentioned earlier. There's too many versions of this, so I'm not going to read anything. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should try to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. I don't know if I can say any of those.
You're good on black and white.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there is room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. That summarizes everything we've talked about.
Basically, yeah.
And I think both of our sort of man. Charlie Chaplin spit some fire.
Really? Okay.
Greed has poisoned men's souls and barricaded the world with hate. I wanted to... dude, this is such a relevant thing. I'm sorry, it just keeps catching my eye. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness of men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity in us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions around the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes us men torture and imprison innocent people.
Wowzers.
We kind of just...
It's bright and dark at the same time.
I know.
But, we went full circle for sure.
Yeah. The final thing. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery upon us is now all but the passing of greed and the bitterness of men who fear many. You've all heard this in a rap sample, so I'm just going to leave it at that. It's been sampled so many times.
Quite a few. Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's funny. We just discussed, 15 to 20 examples of the things he's talking about. And Charlie Chaplin said this back in... when was his time? Yeah,
actually don't know.
The Great Dictator, 1940s.
Wow. Okay.
He said this in the 1940s. He said this before the war ended.
Oh, this was while the war was happening?
I think so. When did
38?
Oh, I thought it was 44.
I think it is 44. Wait, did it end or start then?
I don't know, but I have to blur the screen because the way I googled this was 1945. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
German armed forces surrendered in 1945, May 7th.
And when did it start? Did it say that, or do you have to look for that?
After 1939.
Oh, okay. So I said 38. That's not terrible.
If once we stop rolling, I'll show you what I actually Googled.
Oh, why does it look crazy?
Yeah, because I didn't pay much attention in history.
No.
So I don't know which World War was for what.
Oh no.
So I couldn't search when did World War. Still don't. Oh, World War
That's
II.
2.
I suspected it was 2, but I couldn't be for certain.
I have no knowledge of World War One whatsoever.
No, me neither.
None at all.
So what I actually Googled was, and I'll bleep this. War started when?
Yeah, that's not what they call it.
That's not what they called it. But like Google got it.
Yeah, Google knew what it was. Yeah,
I'm now on some sort of watch list, but Google understood.
They are sadly the main character of said war. That is.
That's it. Yeah,
that is pretty much true. But
this has been a great episode. It has been fun.
Oh, I'll give you one final thing.
Oh, yeah, please.
In the words of Panic at the Disco, you are good because you can, so you do.
Beautiful.
Very simple.
And
cut.